So I made a video a couple of weeks ago on intonation patterns in English, and it seems to have gone down pretty well, so I thought I'd make a video to expand on that very broad subject of intonation and talk more specifically about something called rising and falling intonation patterns in British English. So if we're talking about intonation, what we're talking about really is the use of pitch and the use of rhythm in speech. And the pitch and the rhythm start to add, start to add feeling and intention, because the meaning is really revealed in the language that we're using and the construction of our sentences. But the way we feel about what we're saying is indicated through the use of pitch and the use of rhythm. So I guess we're talking in a musical sense about how we're using our voice as a sort of musical instrument. And so a rising intonation pattern would simply be a rise in the human voice. It would be a change in pitch, a glide in the pitch of our voice upwards. So for instance, ooh, ooh. Now we tend to use this sort of rising intonation pattern when we're asking questions. So the pitch of our voice tends to go up. So for instance, when does the meeting start? When does the meeting start? Start. Can you hear that? Ooh, start. It rises, it comes up in the voice. Would you like a cup of tea? Would you like a cup of tea? So the question is a sort of way of sending out an invitation for some kind of response to whoever you're speaking to. I mean, we do use this downward inflection, which I'll talk more about in a moment, for some questions, but typically speaking, we tend to use this upward inflection. Another instance in which we would use this upward or rising inflection would be on lists. So if I'm saying, I'd like some eggs, some milk, some cheese, and some bread. And we would use a downward inflection, bread, to say that we finished the list. But on the items before that, we would use a rising inflection. So I would say eggs, milk, cheese, bread. I'd like some eggs, milk, cheese, bread. So they're lists, and most questions we would use this rising intonation pattern. A falling or downward intonation pattern would simply mean that the pitch of the voice drops down. So for instance, ooh, ooh. So I would say, for instance, if I'm making a statement, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's one instance that I would use this downward inflection. Commands is another situation. So I would say, put that down. Put that down. Go over there. Stand against the wall. Yeah? Downward inflection. Or put that over there. Downward inflection. So statements, commands, exclamations. Yeah, those are the three instances in which we use this downward inflection. And we tend to use a downward inflection, as I said, with lists at the end of our sentences, at the ends of our content. So when we're indicating that we've finished what it is that we want to say, again, we tend to use this downward inflection. But there is one more. There's something called a circumflex inflection. And you don't need to remember that name. It's a very posh name, circumflex inflection. It basically stands for a pitch that rises, falls, and rises at the very end. And it's not often talked about, and yet, especially in British English, we use it a lot, and we typically use it when we're in the middle of our content, we're in the middle of what we're saying, and we're indicating to the listener, and I just did it, the listener, that we haven't finished what we're saying yet, but then we do. And once we do, we use a downward inflection. So this circumflection sounds a bit like this. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So it goes up, down, up, rise, fall, rise, So if I try to do that now, while I'm talking, then what it suggests to you is that I haven't quite finished yet, and you'll know when I'm finished because I'm going to use this downward inflection, and it falls. So if you're in the middle of your conversations and you don't want anyone else to butt in or interrupt you, then using this circumflex inflection will be a way to say, hey there, I haven't finished what it is that I'm talking about, don't interrupt me yet, but now I've finished, and you can reply. So a rising intonation pattern would be ooh, and we typically use it for questions or for lists. A falling intonation this downward intonation would be ooh, and we tend to use that on exclamations, on statements and commands, and at the ends of our sentences. But there is this extra circumflex inflection, this ooh, this rise, fall, rise, that we typically use when we're in the middle of our conversations, and at the end of each phrase, at the end of each segment, we use this circumflex inflection to say that we haven't finished yet, but when we do, we use a downward inflection and it falls. So I hope you found that useful. If you're on my YouTube channel, then scroll down, hit the thumbs up or the thumbs down, leave me a comment, just let me know what you think of this video. If you're new to this channel, then hit subscribe. I post weekly videos here, so you'll be kept up to date with all sorts of information about British English pronunciation and articulation and speech and intonation. These videos also end up on my website, englishpronunciationroadmap.com, where there's a whole load of free stuff and loads of goodies and loads of videos. There's some free e-courses and some e-books that you can enter your details, and I'll send those over to you. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you next week.